Hi, I'm Jeffrey Betcher. I'm a co-organizer and co-founder with the Quesada Gardens Initiative, which includes the beautiful urban garden, which you can see behind me. We also have several other community gardens, a backyard gardening project, a big mural, and lots of events, and we're having a grand time building community.
The 1700 block is where it all started with Carl and Annette Page. They started with just two people, as seniors, trying to make a change in their own community. And then the other neighbors came out and they decided that, in front of their house, they would do something. And that worked out really well. And now we've got one more house taking care of another spot. And we had like 6 houses, covering, 400 feet. And we had plants everywhere. We really didn't have a whole lot of different plants, but what we would do is we would take a piece off the one and put it in somebody else's little spot, so this way they could have flowers. We'd take cactus, anything that we thought would grow.
There is incredible internal wisdom in communities, and we found people time and time again when there was a challenge. We found somebody right there on the block who had the skills and knowledge necessary to help us get over that hurdle. And I know, having worked for a national nonprofit and having worked a lot with city government, that there's a suspicion or a conclusion that people carry that wisdom really isn't there, that you really need some professional expertise or some consultancy from the outside or some training to make that happen. And in fact, that's not the case.
Yeah, I just started off as a helper. I would help out on weekends when I had free time. And as I got to know more and more neighbors, I became more involved because they was more involved, and the energy was great, from just one block. And I've been around here since 1979, and I'd never seen that kind of energy on this block. I've seen a lot of negative energy, but never any positive energy.
In communities like this, typically where violence and other social factors keep people very much isolated, those informal networks don't always exist. And so there's an opportunity to build that right there in your block. And I'm telling you, the outcomes of that are going to be longer lasting and better than just a gazebo or just a community garden, as wonderful as that is. So that's the Bridgeview Garden right there. So some plants are in. You can see the corn is pretty tall. We've got a little orchard at that side, dwarf plum, fig, Myers lemon, and apple trees. And so now we're working with the soil, working in compost and aerating it and trying to get rid of some of the rocks because it was very rocky. All the terracing was done with urbanite, which the city supplies when they do a demo project, like a sidewalk or something. That broken up concrete either goes to landfill or there's an immediate use for it, like this. We have classrooms of kids that are anxious for us to finish, because they really want to use it. I would see the circumstance where there are a couple of people on a block, so they are local people and they are focused on an asset like an empty lot and they have a good idea. That's great. That is a locally defined use of that lot, but I would encourage them to see it as an opportunity to get more people involved instead of just getting the people you need to make the project happen. See it as an opportunity to build community, not just to get that garden or that playground or that gazebo to happen. This was a block that was already organized around some other issues. They had never done a garden before, but the people were organized, so it was pretty easy for us to come in and help out. They already had done a lot of the organizing work. Bridgeview, quite the opposite happened. There was no organization there, so we kind of had to start from the beginning and build up a constituency for that garden. But they decide the extent to which they want to be a part of the Quesada Gardens Initiative.
I think people really want this to be a green space. Nobody wants to have a bunch of garbage in your backyard. Their behavior kind of dictated how we designed. We were going to have more raised beds, but the kids really seem to just want to have space to run around. So we have the two, and for now, we're just kind of working with it. It hasn't even been a year. So, having the space and having the tree and being able to have access, and it's been really positive.
Usually someone will find some unused land and will be an urban ag person or care about the environment, and will try to get neighbors involved to install a community garden and grow food locally. That's great. We would encourage that to happen. But we would also encourage that the community be brought into a consensus process before that happens and be given a blank slate so that they could really define what exactly that lot is going to be used for. And it might be a playground, you know. It might be a place where people who love to play cards in their house, you know, come out into the street and do it there and be able to meet their neighbors that way. So I'm concerned when I hear that there is predefined or mandated uses of lots. That's an important asset in a community, and the community ought to be involved in defining its use. I mean, there are just a lot of kids on this block, for one thing. You're asking about the kids. But when the community got together the first time, we had a discussion about, okay, here's a lot, what do you want to do with it? And they were very clear that we wanted mixed use. So a lot of people wanted to grow food, so we brought in containers with fresh soil so that it was safe to do that. And then other people really wanted a play area, and so we got a little bit of both.
Our community knows that we're growing food, you know, for those who can't afford to go out and have the freshest produce. You know, we need more food in the neighborhood because the price of gas, the price in the grocery stores, you know, it's all going up. And we think that just a little bit would, you know, take care of maybe anywhere from 100 to 150 families just in this one lot alone.
Whenever we go to a block where there's a potential problem, we're going to ask those folks, what are the problems here? You tell us what the challenges are for you, and then tell us what the strengths are here. And it might be an empty lot, it might be a physical asset, it might be a human asset. Find out what those assets are and connect them to the challenges in a way that is wholly unique to that block, to that group of people, that they have defined themselves, so it's their idea, right? They're invested in it from the very beginning.
There's a million things you could do with this, you know. There's a lot you can do.
What more would you want to do?
You can find these kids to get their own pot. Attend to a potted plant. You're responsible for this plant. You're responsible with their name on something.
That's a great idea.
Some kind of responsibility.
We should do that.
You know, some stuff like there's a million things you can do.
We're at the beginning of a new trend in our world where people are valuing community more and defining community closer and closer to home.
Where I lived before, I lived there for over a decade. I hardly knew any of my neighbors, and we've only lived here 3 years, and the neighbors are so, it's been such a positive force for changing the whole way the block feels and having space for kids to play. There's not a lot of green spaces in Bayview.
We are about building the social fabric that underlies that community and building the network of people right there on that block or half block. It can be a highly localized strategy, and trust that truly good things are going to come out of that process, and almost inevitably they do.